My name is Edna. I'm from the Quahotus First Nation in Raymore, Saskatchewan. I was born March the 30th, 1943. I'm 76 years old. I had 5 children. I lost 1 son, and I have 4 alive, 2 daughters and 2 sons. I have 11 grandchildren, and I have 5 great-grandchildren.
My name is Michelle Brass. I'm 44 years old. I'm from Quahotus Reserve, originally from Key Reserve. I have 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son.
My name is Annie Brass. I'm 50 years old. I'm from Quahotus First Nation. My parents are Edna and Sterling Brass, and I have a son named Lakota.
Okay, well, I was very young when I first went to a powwow. I was about 10, 12 years old. And at that time, powwows weren't as commercial as they are now. You see all the fancy dancers, traditional dancers, jingle dress dancers. Well, jingle dress was always our kind of powwow we had. Same as grass dance, men's grass dance.
When I used to go to powwows as a child, I used to dance, and I hated the outfits because they hurt and they were uncomfortable. And yeah, that was my experience as a powwow dancer. So I wasn't really too into dancing. I just kind of went and sat and learned the beat and watched the dancers.
I guess I was about 10, maybe 11 years old when I was brought into the powwow circle. My mom made me a regalia, and so I remember that day. I remember that ceremony, and from then on I've been able to dance.
The first powwow that we ever occurred was in Fort Capel, and I can't remember what year it was, but I was very young when the powwow went, and we had to drive in horses to go to that powwow. It took us 2 days to go to Fort Capel, and they didn't have like the contest they do have now. They had all the women dance, and it wasn't any kind of like traditional fancy. It had more or less just plain dresses with ribbons and jingle. And a jingle dress dancing was not the way it is now. It's more or less hopping nowadays. Before it was more or less just throwing your feet a certain way. The first time I went to a ceremony like that, I was told that it was a sacred thing, that we weren't supposed to more or less abuse it or even step on it or anything. We had to sit and lift up our jingles so that we don't step on them or anything, and that they were meant for some kind of a healing. Like every cone has a meaning. I don't quite know all the meanings of it, but every cone has a meaning, and the color of material you're supposed to use.
I started dancing traditional as a teenager. I remember being in that. I remember that was when the contests kind of started. When I first started dancing, I don't remember there being contests. It wasn't until I became a teenager that I remember contest dancing, and I remember going in and having to go into the grand entry and having to participate in there. The first time I remember being in a really big grand entry was in 1980 at the World Assembly of First Nations, which happened over in Kronau Beach here in Saskatchewan. I remember seeing people from the States for the first time in the white buckskin dresses, women with their crowns and the way they danced. I remember finding them so elegant, so beautiful. For me, that powwow was the beginning of my own personal love of powwow. That's when I fell in love with powwow. At that point, I knew that I wanted to be a powwow dancer forever, and I chased that. I still dance. My most recent biggest accomplishment is I danced on the world stage in Tokyo for the 2020 Olympics, and I was involved in an international trade mission, and with Indig Inc. And that really, for me, opened up a whole new avenue of doing this thing that I love doing. You know, rekindled the love for it because it's a beautiful experience for me. How do we make regalia?
Oh, sometimes we use cloth and what do you call that? Straight cloth, is that the felting? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and then leather as well, buckskin.
yeah.
And it's white, either white buckskin or tan buckskin, whatever. But the best one to use for beading is moose hide, but that's pretty heavy. So most of the time they use deer hide, and they usually have it commercial. They don't make the white buckskin like they used to. Like long ago they did, but nowadays they don't. It's all commercial from buying it from the store, and it's much easier to use than what they used to have before. I didn't do no beadwork, but I did some fancy sewing on my daughter's outfit there, and till she started beading, and then she showed me how to bead. I should have been the one showing her how to bead, but instead she showed me how to bead. So I can do some beading now.
My latest regalia that I have is a trade cloth regalia, and the thing about the trade cloth is it's a wool, and it's got like stripes on it, and I have on there, I have dentalia shells, and I have elk's teeth, and I also have just abalone shells, and all of the beads and the material that are on there signify trade, because when settlers first came to Saskatchewan and to Canada, they traded with native people, and that was what they gave was that kind of cloth. And our original trading, when we traded with one another originally, we used dentalia shells as a currency. A lot of people are unaware of that. That was like our form of money. We traded with shells. We traded with elk's teeth. We traded with. There were some people that actually carved beads out of wood and bone, right? And those things were painted on or were dyed, and those things were like prized. And so when we traded with one another, we would trade with horses, we would trade with cloth, or we would trade with weapons, guns, knives, and we would also trade with art supplies, which would be beads and different things like that.